Welcome to this promotional clip from our full-length 2-hour and 27-minute production built around the history of Aquasco, Capital, and Cecil County dragways. Listen now as Giulio O'Mara tells us of how his father-in-law, Al Procopio, got started in the drag racing business.
Well, he bought this farm I guess a few years before even Aquasco racetrack existed, and he had a tenant on it, like I said.
Yeah.
And he went up to York with his son and his brothers, and they saw this drag strip at York US 30, and he came back. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to do.
Aquasco, the very first in the area.
Aquasco was the first one in 1956.
56.
And and started running in 57.
Well, you're looking at some early footage from Aquasco Speedway. And, you know, most of the cars at that time were simply street cars rather than all-out drag vehicles. But, you know, that didn't take away from a fun day at the drag strip. By the mid-1960s, a greater number of vehicles began showing up for weekly races being held at Aquasco. Now, in these early years, the track used a flagman to start the cars. In fact, the flag starts continued until 1965. Some of the weekly racers became popular with fans, and the 56 Chevy of John Ridgway and Mel Mann was one of them. The 442 Oldsmobile, running out of Anderson Oldsmobile of Baltimore, Maryland, was also a fan favorite. Sherman Sly built and ran this wild altered coupe at Aquasco. The President's Cup. Tell us about the creation of that.
When Todd ran Aquasco, Todd McRovich, he decided that he would name a race the President's Cup. It went off fairly well. And when Todd left the following year, and for other things, I took over Aquasco and later on, and I said, well, I'm not going to name it just the President's Cup, I'm going to name it the President's Gold Cup.
Rather than being dependent upon any of the national drag race sanctioning associations, Aquasco chose to run the two-day event as an independent effort. The race proved to be very popular with racers and fans alike, and why not, when it only cost $7.50 to register for the race or to grab a spot in the grandstands as a spectator. Now, when you would run the Gold Cup, was it all different kind of classes? How did you? As it turned out, there was a total of 72 individual classes and 8 different categories for the field of race vehicles at the event. Now, they all ran for a $5,000 cash purse that was spread among the 8 racing categories. Sam Auxier Jr. drives the AFX Moyer Comet. Here comes Gene Morey with his B-Altered injected Chevrolet-powered Volkswagen. Right behind him, Bob Bernardin with the Jolly Dolly 39 Chevrolet. This little A-Gas Falcon is run by the team of Arhue, Mullaney, and Hemsley. After 66, because we have some footage of the President's Gold Cup race there. The big difference in the 1966 President's Gold Cup race was the addition of an experimental stock eliminator that paid $750 to win and $300 to the runner-up. New this year will be a parade of the vehicles participating in the top 2 categories of the event. Now, first out are some of the experimental stock entries, and that's Bill Flynn with the Yankee Peddler. And Mel Perry is behind the wheel of the Warwick, Rhode Island 66 Chevelle, sponsored by Norwood Chevrolet. Sam Auxier Jr. will be driving the Moyer Mercury Comet. That's Tom Sneedham with the Bounty Hunters car.
Route 3 Saturday night at beautiful Capital Drag Raceway. For the great ones, run!
Ben Christ had, I forgot the gentleman's name that was running a Capital, and he opened the track up one Sunday and disappeared. And the first guy that came down to the gate to tell us the Capital had closed was Smoker Smith.
Smoker.
Smoker said, don't close the pits because there's a bunch of cars coming from Capital down here. Hold the pits open for inspection for another hour or so because you're going to have all those people from Capital coming down here to race.
Yeah.
And he was the first one. He said Capital is folded up. And I forgot the man collected the money and took off. When we took over Capital, Mr. Baldwin, who's Reliable Asphalt, told my father-in-law, says, Al, I don't know nothing about drag strips or racing. I'm in the, the asphalt grading business. He said, I'm going to take it up to 200,000 and I'm going to stop because that's how much they owe me.
Now this is around 64,
64
when it goes
yes.
up for auction.
Right.
So how long had it been open before that, Capital?
I think no more than 2 years.
2 years,
No more than
yeah.
2 years.
Yeah.
Opening the track, whatever
Yeah.
came in.
They come in and race their cars.
Yeah, and plays the car.
Usually they drove their race cars to the track and
Yeah.
and then they raced them.
Well, this footage is from 1967, and it gives you a good idea of the variety of race vehicles that appeared at Capitol. Now keep in mind that this is just a short promotional clip, and lots more racing appears in the full-length 2-hour and 27-minute production. Pete Preston is driving the Preston and Lawrence national record-holding G-Stock 57 Chevy wagon, and Pete hails from Reading, Pennsylvania. Over in the pit area is the Windward and Giacono Brief Encounter 3 fuel dragster. Joe Giacono was one of the pioneers of the sport back in the early 1950s. Here comes Joe Giacono on the outside lane, and he'll be driving Biddy Windward's Brief Encounter fuel dragster.
Time went on, and then the brothers went up to Cecil and decided to buy a piece of land up there and build a racetrack.
Well, let's hear from longtime Cecil starter Lance Keene.
Well, the track actually, the construction started in the fall of 1962 by an outfit called Procopio and DeSeris. They were contractors out of the Washington area, and I built this over the winter of 62, 63 on their off times when their company, and it opened up in the spring of 1963.
Bob Harrop advertising Atco Dragway on his 63 Dodge. Bud Fauble out of Chambersburg, Pennsylvania with his Honker Dodge. Bob Beck with his Mr. Quick 63.5 427 Ford. Vernon Raleigh with his red 63 Plymouth going up against a 421 Pontiac. A 62 409 Chevrolet known as Northwind. A full-size Chevrolet using a 427 engine to run in the B-Stock class. Very cool car. Another cool car running at Cecil County is this 427 powered Falcon that was owned, built, and driven by Larry Hammer of Manheim, Pennsylvania. Larry's Falcon is sponsored by Phillips Ford of Manheim, Pennsylvania, and the 427 4-speed car is known as Bad Baron, and I love it.
Henry Miller's Seagas 55 Chevy has been accused of having a skunk in the trunk by the competition. Could it be true? On July 30th, 1966, Cecil County hosted the Cars Magazine Superstock International event. The fans packed the track, and some of the biggest names in Superstock racing showed up for the event. As big as the Cars Magazine race was in 1966, the 1967 Superstock Nationals was even bigger. The Procopio and DeSarius ownership group were able to bring in the color and excitement that rivaled any national event in the country. Now check out some of our preview footage. Back at Aquasco, Julio decides to feature funny car racing as part of the weekly program.
The 8-car match race was the most popular.
Oh.
Some tracks went to 12 and some went to 16, but the 8-car match race was the most popular.
Yeah.
And the spectacle of a group of flip-top funny cars in the pit area was also an important part of the program. Now, back in the day, spectators were allowed to walk right up to these race cars, and some spectators even offered to be of help if a team seemed short-handed. I love the green paint on the Bob Banning dive.
Well, as big as it is, and it's real big now at this point, it seems like all things close down someday. And of course, that happened to Aquasco. Were you there for the end of Aquasco? The track still exists there. What remains of the tower and the snack bars there and things like that.
Some of the lettering is still discernible on the front side of the tower, as is the yellow and white paint colors. When we look off to our right, that would be the staging area leading up to the burnout box. To the left, as we look at the front of the tower, we find the racing surface itself. Wow. Yes, it was a sad day when they closed Aquasco, especially since the track was blameless for the environmental issues for which it was accused. But it is what it is. Now the other two tracks, Capitol and Cecil County, are still in operation, but who knows for how much longer. Let's hope they continue for many years to come. Well, that's it for our preview footage. Now, please consider purchasing the full-length 2-hour and 27-minute video from Beyond Video, where drag racing memories come to life.